Welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast, hosted by Dave Roberts. Humanity possesses a unique skill, the ability to pass knowledge from one generation to the next. This podcast embraces that ability, offering learning opportunities through conversations with extraordinary guests. Dave aims to leave a positive mark on individuals around the world. So before you dive into today's episode, please share this podcast with your network, including friends, family, and colleagues. And please consider leaving a rating or review. Your support makes all the difference.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts. Today, it is my pleasure to have as my guest, Sheila B. Tillich. Reverend Sheila B. Tillich has been openly and deeply committed to a spiritual path since 1985. As a recovery metaphysician, Sheila guides individuals in awakening to and aligning with their true self, empowering them to live the purposeful life that they were divinely created for. Her healing practice facilitates a profound electromagnetic shift within the body, supporting transformation on physical, emotional, and spiritual levels. As a metaphysical minister, healer, and galactic grandmother, Sheila's mission is to hold a sacred field of God consciousness energy that nurtures healing and remembrance. Within this space, she works to gently merge the human energy field with the consciousness of God, restoring harmony, clarity, and divine alignment. In her role as galactic grandmother, she supports emotional healing and offers soul-level solutions that help individuals step fully into their divine purpose, drawing nourishment from Mother Earth's energy and the wisdom of their galactic lineage. And with that, Sheila, welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast. It's a pleasure having you on the program today.
Oh, thank you, Dave. I am so excited, and thank you very much for having me.
Well, you're welcome. And we met through another intuitive spiritual healer, Nina Maglik.
Yes.
Nina is wonderful. I reached out to her basically through intuition. I liked her profile, liked what she was doing. We connected. I'd been on her podcast, and she said, I got to introduce you to Sheila. I think she would be a great fit. I think you would align for a podcast episode. And she was on point, and we find ourselves at this present moment today.
Absolutely. I am so grateful. I love all the connections that we have. Right time, divine time.
Yes, and I've been a firm believer that the people that come into our lives when they're supposed to, and not a second before.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
so Sheila, I have a bunch of questions for you, so I hope you're ready with some answers.
I'm ready.
All right. So, first and foremost, tell our audience about the experiences that have shaped your life path and your life passions today.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it all began, of course, when I was born, but I was born hard of hearing. So I came from a family of 8 kids, so there was 10 of us all together. And my actual childhood is really what shaped me to do what I do today, to help heal and people to understand that they have the power within. So my parents were both active alcoholics. So, and I share that is because alcoholism is part of my journey. Also, recovery in all different areas is part of my journey. So as a child, I was born hard of hearing, but I also could hear and see intuitively. I could hear angels and talk to angels, but I was told, that we could only have a guardian angel. So I lived with the shame, and I hid who I really was. Went through life, and during the early 70s, I got married right out of high school, started having my children. But I always wanted to be a nurse midwife. I always wanted to birth babies. But my father passed away when I was 15, and he had cancer. He had lung cancer. And then I gave up my dream of being a nurse midwife. So I did get married from my high school sweetheart right out of high school. Started having children right away. And that's what we did back then. We did. But I wasn't happy. And we tried everything. And as the years went on, my own siblings were very much intuitive also, and were sharing some of this stuff, but I wasn't ready. And then in 1985, I started working on myself. It was all spiritually, divinely led, by the way. I was a church secretary. I was involved with different ministries. And my childhood, I always wanted to be a better mother than my parents were. Of course, today, I've done a lot of healing inner child work on all that. That's what got me into recovery, was my inner child work. And I am so close to them in spirit. They're all gone now. My whole family's gone now. But I do know that everything that I experienced was for my own learning as a human. And that we, as divine beings, have a purpose, every single one of us. And I always kept that within inside me. But my codependency, I got when I said I got into recovery for my inner child work, it was a lot about people pleasing so that I would be loved. I didn't feel loved. And today I know that my parents did the best they could with what they had. But I also know that when as spirit comes and who I am as a soul, it was my divine purpose to be born into that family, to learn what I know today, to go through all those obstacles and challenges that I went through, just surviving as a child, both parents being alcoholic. And when I married, I didn't treat my children like I was treated. However, I knew that it was a family disease. It was generational. And my children were actually the catalyst for me getting into recovery, is that I wasn't happy and I was seeing everything that they were going through. And I knew that I had to take action. I had to take care of myself before my children even had a chance to have a happier life too. I had to be happy. So I had to be that role model. So in 85, I got into recovery for codependency. My own relationships with my mother and my siblings and stuff like that was all playing out. Of course, my relationship in my marriage. And so it took me 8 years in Al-Anon to actually come out of denial that I had a problem with alcohol. And I didn't drink every day like my parents did. And it was part of what I had to go through, the grieving process of all my family members dying and everything that was going through, that it was time for me to do the work that I needed to do. And so I got myself in recovery for alcoholism. And it was a spiritual program, and it was very spiritual. Everything happened the way it was supposed to. And through all those experiences, I still was able to communicate with my loved ones that had already passed. Matter of fact, I had 3 of them that had already passed. And one was my brother, Kevin. He was 17 and I was 18. And I never grieved his death until I got into recovery for alcoholism because I stuffed it. That's what I did. I didn't know how to be. I didn't know my insecurities. I played a role, in the marriage. I played a role as a mother. But I knew there was more to life than I was living. So it took many years before I actually was divorced. I stayed for quite a while, 32 years, and I'm very grateful. And there's been so many miracles in my life since then, as far as me standing in my power with who I really am as a divine being. And through my own teaching of healing myself, as a healer, we need to heal ourselves first. It's always about us first. The same with my children, being the role model for them, for they can have a life. And so I continued on my journey, and I never actually divorced until 2005. So it was many years in between. But it also gave me the time to finish a lot of the emotional healing from the marriage, trying so hard and being there and stuff. But it also allowed me to start working on my own spiritual growth as a medium and to really step into my power to what I do today. So it's about the healing that I had to do myself, and then realize the only way that I can go forward is to give it away. So you give it away to receive it back. back and forth, back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you put out, you get back. And I think I was reading in a book recently that the author said that, in order to heal, you need to help somebody else first, and then that comes
Exactly.
back.
Well, that's part of the AA approach too. Give away without expecting anything back. And also all my resentments and the anger that I had most of that for staying so long.
Yeah.
But I do know that I needed that time to make the right decision for me.
Yeah.
Hindsight is 2020. You can see back, everything that you needed to change, but you weren't ready. And I'm very grateful for all the people that helped me on this journey in my own recovery from issues, not only alcoholism and not only codependency, but it was about how I relate to people.
Yeah.
How I relate to people.
And you mentioned alcoholism, and as a former addictions professional, I worked with alcoholics and other substance using individuals around grief. And the thing with alcoholism and other substance users is that grief tends to be delayed because after a severe loss, it's self-medicating. So
Exactly.
I remember working with a client who had self-medicated for 4 years after her child died in a car accident. And when she came into treatment, she was beginning to experience the visceral reactions of grief as if it were day one because she had self-medicated for 4 years and suppressed the natural grief response. So we had to work with her as if it wasn't 4 years into her grief, as it was day one into her grief because of the delayed reaction that the substances played on her experiencing the pain. So
Exactly. Exactly.
so,
Exactly. And that's where the 20 years came in between.
mhm.
When my brother had killed himself and when I actually got into recovery. And it's mind-boggling how you see so many people stay in the relationship for so long and see how it affects their lives and everyone else that they're in touch with. And that was like the catalyst. That was really the catalyst, is that I did not want my children to go through. And they've gone through their own challenges. And why I said the miracles that have happened is that, they're waking up and it's all about love, right? It's all about love. And that the hospice work came into play when I went back to nursing school to become a nurse midwife. I did. And it was hard. I never finished nursing school. I had 3 years for my bachelor's and I had physical problems. I came down with fibromyalgia. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. Through all this healing, all those years, I was actually able to heal myself. So that's another part of my journey of stepping into, as a healer, healing myself from physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual stuff, and knowing that it had to take its time to be who I am today. And it kind of follows with that actual rate how I did it. Went to nursing school, I never finished, but I also did the hospice work on the side, and the spirit connection and the angels and stuff. So, yeah, I'm so grateful. I'm
Well,
grateful.
and certainly you've embraced all aspects of your soul plan. And I firmly believe we come into this life with a specific soul plan. There may be a lot of flexibility within that plan, depending on what we experience in the human experience, but we still come in with a pre-designed plan and that we have contracted for, along with other individuals who may be in our soul groups that we contracted to have those relationships with.
Exactly. And that's exactly. And the teaching that I do, healing work, I always go back to the heart because it's always about heart and it's about love. And I share the story about my brother who passed in 2019, and he was a Marine sergeant. And he also was in recovery like I was. And but he had a lot of anger, which caused a lot of health issues. To make a long story short, I was his advocate for 5 days while he was comatose before he actually passed. And it was beautiful because being able to witness to other people see my role, and also it was at the same hospital that I worked in from nursing school until 2017, I worked at a major hospital. I was working on IV services. But the thing was that the miracles that came out of that, and right when the diagnosis was, I knew he was almost brain dead because I've worked with patients like that. My whole soul family, my generic family, all came to me in front of me. And my brother did also. And he came to me and he gave me 4 messages. He said, I'm not coming back. You know what to do. I'll be calling the shots, and I'm standing right beside you. And that's exactly what he did. And so I was able to share that at the actual funeral because it wasn't about how you were going to live your life. It was the experiences that you had to show that it is all about love. It's all about love. And also my family members told me, I have had so much death. And I say, why? Another one. And they all said, my parents came because this is what you're here to do.
Yeah.
That was part of my soul plan. And I also share a lot about my childhood and different situations, how things happen and how they got stuck within my cellular memory and the science behind it. I understand it now, the energy, but also the love that you have from that energy. And we communicate with our hearts. It's our heart connection is how we make the connection, and that love never dies, ever, ever.
No, relationships don't die because the physical body does.
Exactly.
If we're open to it, we can transform those relationships, continue those bonds, and welcome them into a pure spiritual relationship based on love and acceptance.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
one of the things I noticed on your website is your connection to the HeartMath Institute. And I wanted to ask you about that and the role that it has played specifically in your spiritual journey. I know you alluded to love about the heart and everything, but how does HeartMath Institute and your connection to that align with what we've already talked about?
It has everything to do with it. And that's why I say the spiritual part. So through my own journey, I did become a medium, and I found out about this modality called integrated energy therapy. It was a healing modality with quantum healing, and it's about the connection within your soul, but also the connection within your past, all right, what you came in here with. And so I was already teaching that when I, through my own journey, became a part of a team with Lee Carroll, who channels Cryon. And we do all the heart math because that's what integrated energy therapy is. It's about heart linking with the soul and letting the energy flow through. And at the same time, you expand your own energy field, your consciousness, your higher consciousness while you're here. So HeartMath, it was wonderful is because it went hand in hand with what I was already doing with integrated energy therapy. And that's exactly how I healed myself from fibromyalgia, was going deep down inside and find out where did disease process, in other words, the emotional, the physical, what happened to me. And then how, when I started seeing the change holistically for myself, what is really my role? Is it to be a nurse midwife? Or is it to continue to share my journey of how holistically I went down that avenue? And it was slow, but it did happen. And HeartMath is about the collective, about all of us in the energy. And that's what's so beautiful about today. So many of us are doing this work, connecting from our heart center by able to breathe it out and change our own fields first. That's where it goes back to healing ourselves first. But how do we deal with the stressors and have the resilience against the stressors? And how can I not end up like so-and-so or whatever? So it's like changing the story, taking responsibility for your own creative future. And a lot of people call that manifesting. But I call about going with inside first and healing yourself. And then you radiate that self out. HeartMath is wonderful. Yeah. Thank you for that question, because HeartMath is so important. So important.
Well, you're welcome. And, I look at it, we can't manifest from my perception unless we empower ourselves to manifest first.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and I think the HeartMath model allows us to empower ourselves by changing the narrative, by challenging what we've told ourselves about ourselves. And I think we might have talked about this in our introductory call, but that so aligns with, Dan Condren and permanent healing. Condren was a physician who talked about how disease thoughts contribute to physical illness and what we can do to change our thinking to address our physical conditions differently. He had a glossary for every possible medical ailment, including psoriasis, the thought that
Yeah.
contributed to it, the root cause of that thought, which is also important, and
Yeah.
how to change that and how to modify the thought so that you're feeling well physically. And I tell individuals, yeah, you can do that, but also don't discount good Western medicine to integrate with your ability to shift your thinking. And there are very few individuals, from my understanding, Sheila, that can use their inner light to just simply cure disease by themselves. Louise Hay was one. I know you've talked about you doing that yourself, but there's
Mhm.
very few people that have that, I guess, that higher level of consciousness and, advanced meditative abilities to be able to do that. So I always tell individuals, do integrate the holistic practices with what is
Western.
good
Mhm.
science.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what I liked about the Cryon team, is that everyone was doing that already. But I had been doing it from the beginning, knowing it's like, no, no. And that was the direction from the angels, by the way. That when I was a child, I never remembered this about 10 years ago, is that I was in the car with my mother, the only child out of 8 kids. And all of a sudden I called out, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, why are we here? Where do we come from?" And she pulled over, turned the car off, and turned around to me and she said, "Honey, I don't know." But when I look back at it now, my soul knew. That's where the angels came in, so, but it wasn't until I was ready to do the work, to really understand the disease concept, the physical, and the root cause of the emotional. How did it get stuck inside? So that's when integrated energy therapy came around. I had already been doing the work and connecting with angels, and I had no intention of being a teacher, no intention, because I'm hard of hearing. I teach differently. I learn differently. When I was in nursing school, I finally got my first pair of hearing aids when I was in nursing school, by the way. That was back in the 90s, and so, but I trusted. I let go of the fear and I trusted, because I knew that I was never alone and that there was a reason for this. And there's so many people out there could be helped by that. And, alcoholism was such a dirty word and it was so shameful when we grew up.
Yeah.
And today it's like, it's not only that, it's everything in our life is, sometimes we feel powerless and we really aren't, but we do have to do the work. We have to take the responsibility back to do the work, to change.
I think with anything, the more responsible and accountable we can become for our own behavior, the more likely we're going to embrace change, and those changes are going to become self-sustaining and long-term.
Exactly. I love these questions.
Well, thank you, Sheila. Thank you. As a CEO and primary HR specialist of the podcast, I make sure that I have checks and balances and make sure that I'm asking good
No,
questions. So, but anyway, I also know you're a recovery physician, excuse me, and a
Mhm.
galactic grandmother. Tell me about these roles, elaborate on those further, and how they inform the services that you provide for those that request them.
Exactly. So many of us are wakening up to that there's more to life than what we see, basically. And my whole role as a metaphysician, when I left mainstream healthcare in 2017, I was already a part of the Cryon team, but I knew I needed to do different. And it was time for me to leave Western medicine. because I was living holistically and the stuff that was inhibiting me from moving forward. So I went back and I got a degree as a metaphysician. And it was very easy for me because I was already living my life in the spiritual realm. And it was about connecting with consciously with unseen forces, that we told it's not real, but we know it's real. So I also became trained as a HeartMath coach at the same time. So as I went through, started to continue in my journey, I continued with my actual integrated energy therapy, doing sessions and supporting myself that way. And then I was connected with somebody from Cryon Team, Dr. John Ryan, and started doing unity field healing. Unity field healing is a quantum modality, just like integrated energy therapy, where you actually bring in the energy around you to do the healing, and that we aren't alone. Well, through all that, especially in 2019, the star mothers, all right, and the galactic grandmothers, when we talk about galactic grandmothers, we're talking about the unseen, but you can feel it. Just like I knew the angels were there, I could feel them, and I knew that they were helping me. I also was a global host for the Lemurian Sisterhood that is part of the Cryon team. The Lemurian Sisterhood was about women like me that were starting to wake up to who they really were and their connection to a higher source, the higher source. And it was what I liked about the Cryon team. It was all scientifically based. And it was about connecting with a multidimensional frequency, our souls, who we are, where we came from. And that is from the stars. And I'm also a shaman. I became a shaman back in 2013. So it all lined up the way it was supposed to. So the Star Mothers, when I was actually in Ottawa, Canada with Dr. Ryan, opening one of his presentations, came to me and they said, from now on, you are going to be standing in your own light. We are the ones that have been with you since the beginning. And yes, we are the angels, which I already knew that. I knew that back in 16 and 17 when I joined the Cryon team, and that it's time for you to shine your own light. And so they told me that I was a galactic midwife. So my role in Lemurian Sisterhood, going back and understanding, how we started in Lemuria, which is a lot of people know about Lemuria, but where the Star Mothers came and gave us the chromosomes, the DNA that we have now, which is the 24th chromosome, which is the higher consciousness, which is the opening of our spiritual divineness, who we are. So during that time, I found out when I was a host that I was part of Lemuria, and I was actually an entity, first generation Princess Sophia. And Princess Sophia actually helped birth the babies in the water in Lemuria, in the warm, and we actually have a book on all that. And so it was like the timing, everything was lining up the way it was supposed to. So even though I didn't become a nurse midwife in the human form in Western medicine, I became a midwife to help others see who they really are and to help them awaken to the power that they have inside, to help them realize that we are all connected. We are all connected. So galactically, I channel the Star Mothers. When I do healings, they come through me. And a lot of people say, well, don't you go into something trance, whatever? No, they merge with me and they help me teach. And that's why it's so powerful, is that each of my clients have different needs. All right. And some of them, don't understand that the power that they have as divine beings, they've always lived in old programmings or beliefs or patterns. And that's where taking the responsibility comes into play. What do I need to heal? And that's where the Star Mothers come in, because they show me and they help me communicate with the person. And when I do sessions, it's also a combination of everything that I am. And it's the higher frequency that connects with the DNA, which is the multidimensional frequency that's here now. And it's when people talk about, the spiritual warfare, when you're in religion, and, I went through all that because I was a church secretary, is that, yeah, it's about frequency, though, lower and higher frequency, and your thoughts, and how what you think is what you project out. And that's what comes towards you. So it was a big circle of everything that I needed to know to heal myself, but also what my soul's purpose was. What am I here to do? And it just listening and trusting that they were there. And so that's how the Star Mothers help me individually, people help them. And I also channel. And when I channel, that frequency in the energy field comes through. And if the person is serious, of course, not everyone wants to change. And it has to be their own choice to change. And if they're serious, just like with the people that I work with, they have to be serious for me to work with them because I am a mentor. And I start from the beginning. Where do they come from? What's the root cause? That's why my childhood is so important to share it openly and to say, yeah, I'm an alcoholic and I choose to not drink. However, when you hear those words, you hear of negative instead of it is such an attribute to me because it's like there's so many things out there that we can not look at ourselves with that pulls us off, the comparisons that keep us stuck. But when you look at, am I happy? Do I have joy? Am I making a difference in the world? And as a grandmother, I am a grandmother. I'm a grandmother of 8 and a great-grandmother of 1. So I am a grandmother. I am a grandmother. And yes, grandmothers bring wisdom. The same with Native American, the crone woman. And it's wisdom. And it's like people are looking for this wisdom. And that's why we're here. That's the collective connection with the heart. It has to be real. It has to be real.
Absolutely. And I believe there's been many different healers who were meant to come down at this time. It was part of their contract to come down and try to create a world that's more compassionate, more inclusive, more welcoming, and where we see more similarity than difference. And I think, like with any global transition, you got to throw the physical calendar out the window. It's more in terms of phases. So I really am hopeful and positive that we're in a phase where we're going to embrace those type of values that are going to make the world collectively a more harmonious place to live in, and also help us become more tolerant to each other's differences and understand those rather than judge them. So that's my hope for the future, Sheila. One thing that occurred to me, people who access their higher consciousness, does that look the same for everybody, or how their higher consciousness are accessing that, is that manifest based on individual differences?
Individual differences, absolutely. Because we're all individuals, but we're the same.
Yep.
In other words, we're human, we're living on Earth at the same time, but also we are unique, each and every one of us. And we came here for a reason. And that's the whole point. What am I here for? What's my purpose? But a lot of people don't realize that they have a choice. I never knew I had a choice. I always thought that I was a victim, all right? And it's not about being a victim. It's about what you want to experience. What do you want to get out of life? But you also have to make the choice to do different. And the old programming is that some people don't want to change because of the fear inside. And I always say, you have 2 choices. You can live in love or you can live in fear.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, yeah, but you don't understand. And I said, well, help me understand. And so what the Star Mothers do, there we go back to the Star Mothers, they have me come to the place that they're at and share my own experience, strength, and hope, is because that's how we line up in the frequency, and the higher frequency, just like HeartMath does, is that the stressor is what makes your physical body go through the stress. How can you help it? And that's validation. it's validation that we aren't alone.
Meeting people where they're at is a core principle of building any kind of a relationship, especially with somebody who's experienced trauma. You got to
Mm,
meet them where they're at. They're going to give you a door that they're going to want you to walk through. You walk through that door and you don't try to crash down another one that they got closed. Um, it's common sense, and that's how we build a relationship, and we can help them really find their divine purpose when all is said
exactly.
and done. Yep.
Exactly. Exactly.
The Galactic Ascension Academy. Tell us about that. What inspired its creation? Who's a part of it? What's the
Okay.
mission? The whole 9 yards.
Well, it all happened, matter of fact, the month before COVID hit. So the month before COVID hit was February of 2020 when I was in Ottawa, Canada, when the Star Mother said, this is what we're going to do. When I got home, I was teaching classes and stuff, and then COVID hit. And then the first part of April, the Star Mother says, you're going to start another group. It's going to be called the Lightworkers Connection Circle. And I was saying, well, I already have the Sacred Sisterhood. I already have that going on. And they said, no, it's about helping people stay out of the fear, out of the drama, and stay focused on themselves, the blessings, and I knew it was a turning point. And I also knew that it was in 2019 that the energy portals that were slowly working to open up since 2012, which is the Mayan calendar and the precession of the equinox that a lot of us know about, a lot of people don't. And so that was coming into play. So the Lightworkers Connection Circle was led by the Star Mothers, but I really didn't know where this was going to go. And then a couple of years later, they said, now we're going to spice it up a little bit. Now we're going to go and call it the Galactic Ascension Academy. And you're going to help others that are awakening to this energy, help them heal themselves, because it's all about us healing first before we can give it away. And also, all of us that are connecting, doing this work, how we use each other to connect, it's like putting all the dots together. So the Galactic Ascension Academy is about how do we live in the 3D world? How do we live in today with all the stuff going on and still have peace? And evolve at the same time. How do we ascend? A lot of people hear that word ascend, they don't really understand it because it's all new vocabulary. Just like the 24th chromosome is multidimensional, it's like, what? But it's real. And until they start hearing those words, then they will start to understand. So how do you change your life and move forward? And I always say, just like with an elephant, in the rooms, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Well, the sisterhood helped me solidify who I really was as the Galactic Star Mother. But now my real role is to help humanity move forward. And the Galactic Ascension Academy is for those who become awakened or they know they have things they need to work on and they want answers. And so my practice also is about being a new energy educator, understanding what is different now, and it's about the energy is different, programming our beliefs and what we choose, and to actually go past that and grab who you really are, grab the different tools that you have. It's all about choices, back about choices. And then many people that are part of the Galactic Ascension Academy are my former clients that have come to me through Source, through the collective field, who heard my name. They have no idea who I am or what I was, but they knew they needed to go down this route. So many of my clients, I work with them and mentor them, help them understand their own growth, their own journey. And that's where integrated energy therapy comes in and unity field healing. And so when I do sessions, it's a combination of the Star Mothers, using the polarization with the energy with science, using HeartMath connection, using the issues in the tissues. What are those specific issues that they need to deal with? So in the Galactic Ascension Academy, it's many of us that understand that, and with the energy that is changing now, to help you live in the chaos that's happening right now, is that you have to stay in the positive energy to move forward, or you choose to stay stuck. The Galactic Ascension Academy is for people, men and women, who are drawn to this work, who knows that they need to stay connected. And that's what the Galactic Ascension Academy is. I have different events for the actual membership. I also have a course called Sobriety Through Spirituality. All right. What does that mean? And then the events that I have is a group setting, and you connect through the heart with the HeartMath. You connect with others and you get the power. We're all working this together. It's like the big matrix around the earth, the lights that are going off. The more people that awaken and start to shine their light, the more joy and everything changes. And that's exactly what is happening right now, is that people are changing. They don't know how to change. And so that's the clients that I work with, and then the people that are in the Galactic Ascension Academy. A lot of them are just, they're not professionals, but they know they need to heal. And it triggers down to the children. And what can you give to help with your legacy, And for years, my family life was kind of discombobulated with me, changing and stuff like that. And I knew that I had to work on myself before things would line up. And so my children being the catalyst is about us as healers, catalysts to help heal others who don't know that there's another way out there.
Yeah.
And so the Galactic Ascension Academy helps people understand, what does ascension mean? It is about growing as a soul. And what can I do different? How can I help my children? How can I help my family? It's always about you first. You put the oxygen mask on first, and then your vibration expands and changes. That helps your family or whatever situation that you're in. Then you can see all the miracles happen. And they always say, beyond your wildest dreams, right? It is. And a lot of people say, oh, that's a bunch of bunk, because they're still living in the old programming. They don't realize that they have a choice and they have the power, but they have to do the work.
Yeah, and you mentioned issues in the tissues. For me, I never knew my father. He left when I was 5 years old, but through pure serendipity, I met my first cousin on my father's side of the family, and she gave me clear context into my father's history, that he couldn't stay in a traditional marriage. And I firmly believe that, though I did not know my father, his history was inextricably woven into my DNA. And we could call it generational trauma, but it also, I think, generated some of the choices that I made. I was drawn to working with alcoholics. I was drawn to working with individuals with mental health issues.
Yeah.
And on my father's side of the family, that's what there was. There was a history of alcoholism. There was a history of mental health issues. If emotional attachment was wanted by one of the women, they just got up and left because that's what they knew. So I realized all of this and realized I couldn't blame my father for being born into a system where he knew no other way to function. So
Exactly.
learning to forgive him was empowering to me, and I believe also was empowering to his spirit to continue to grow
Oh, yeah.
on the other side. But the issues in our tissues, we take our histories with us, knowingly or unknowingly. That
Exactly.
dictates what we do in this lifetime, and also dictates what our soul needs to do to evolve.
Exactly. Exactly. And the angels being with me since I was a little girl, I couldn't hear a lot of other people, but I could hear them, was so instrumental as my soul knew what my destiny was going to be. And they also gave me choice. I didn't have to take on this role. And just like what my brother said, and all my family members said, this is what I'm here to do. It's like going within, feeling the power that you have, and then taking the action and seeing the results. That's what I love when I see somebody grow and I see them change and that they don't need me anymore. It's like, That's what you want, right? You want, but you're always connected. You're always connected is because this person, that person, they were all mentors of yours. And you take everything. The family dynamics is so important, and the forgiveness of understanding that that was the way the world was back then. They didn't know any different. However, now we can make a difference for the future. And it's the science behind it. So now I'm concentrating on the nervous system. And what does it do, this energy that's here now, with the nervous system and all the things that we are all feeling? We're all feeling this shift of consciousness. And that is the connection in the energy field, what is happening. Like water, the energy in water is so important because if you think the water's going to help you, it's going to help you. If you think it's not, well, let's try something else.
Yep.
The thing is using what you have available to move forward and understanding the changes that are happening on a spiritual level is because those family members are still with you. They don't ever die. That's what I like about unity field healing. Unity field healing is about connecting with the wisdom of your ancestors in all your lifetimes, all the things you've experienced, and not bring the old karma. So people always talk about karma. That's an old teaching. But we needed to understand that, just like in science, learn about penicillin and to where we are now. And to understand where modern healthcare is such a blessing. And the same as, we have choices and you work both of them together. You work both the holistic and the actual beautiful science that we have now.
Yep.
Work with it together. There's a lot into that question. There's so much.
Sheila, I also wanted to ask you about your YouTube channel, Ascension Wisdom. Tell our audience about what you do with Ascension Wisdom, what the focus is, and how that aligns with your life's work.
It aligns everything is because this energy is so powerful right now. And there's so many of us light workers, I call them light warriors, all right, that are connecting with the energy. And Ascension Wisdom is about just having a conversation, just like what we're doing right now. All right. Yes, serendipity and synchronicity has a lot to do with who I am, and what you are, and how do we all get there. So now let's take it into a bigger dive. Let's dig deeper. All right. What is how can you share what personally happened to you? And how does it expand and help you connect with another person? So we're all doing this together, and it's like putting all those pieces together, those puzzles, to make the big tapestry. So Ascension Wisdom is what the Star Mother said, now we're going to take it up another notch. And so that's where Ascension Wisdom comes into play. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun channel and a very enlightening channel to be a part of. And I think probably listening to the guests themselves could motivate individuals to try to tap into their higher consciousness, which I believe everybody has the potential to do that.
Yeah. And some people might not resonate with me, but they resonate with my guest. And that's exactly what it's all about. It's not about ego or competition. It is about the purpose, the mission. What is the mission? It's about healing. And we all have stories. We all have a past, a background story.
And how we see higher consciousness and the tools that we use to achieve it are going to be different for everybody. So for me, it's never been my job to judge what do you believe. It's tell me what you believe and how it's helped you get to the point that you've gotten to where you're ready to embrace higher consciousness, where you've already gotten to that level.
Exactly. Absolutely. We're on the same wavelength here. And that's what's great.
Yeah, I mean, when there's alignment, it's great. And we can align, I think individuals with different perspectives can still align on similar perspectives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And some people aren't into the spiritual, but they're into the science.
Yep.
So that's what really got me, because I was from mainstream medical. And when I got into recovery back in 93 for alcoholism, I wanted to learn everything. I wanted to learn, the different stages of alcoholism, and because that was helped me understand that just because my parents were active alcoholics every day they drank, I didn't. But it was still, once a pickle, always a pickle. It can't go back to being a cucumber. And it's like understanding that you, the thing is that there's many factors to everybody's lives, and they're not the same. But really to shed the actual layers of it and understand what you need to grow. And with Ascension wisdom, everybody has a piece of it. We're not alone. That's the connection. And to share, if somebody's more scientifically, I have all different ones to understand, even if they're atheist. It's like, okay, I get it. I get it. And that was something big with my brother before he passed. A lot of the anger he had was seeing most of his siblings turn to the metaphysics. And he was just Darwin, he was strong. And it's like, damn, why can't they, why do they keep doing this? But it was also part is that this is his role. And it's okay. You can have different opinions and you can still love. So that's metaphysics and spirituality and science, and it all can go together. It all can, because that's exactly what's happening now.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the trend of the future right now and also the present. There's not going to be, I think, any standalone schools of thought anymore. It's going to be merging the best of several different worlds. So,
Exactly.
in our pre-chat, we discussed the significance of the Great Conjunction of 2020 and what it signaled for social progress. And I would have put you and your guides on the
Okay.
spot a little bit here,
Okay.
Sheila.
I love it. A lot of people don't want to go there.
I will go there.
Okay.
I will go there. There isn't anything that's off limits to me unless my guests tell me that something is off limits. But what are your guides telling you about future astrological events that suggest future global transformation is in store for 2026 and beyond?
Oh, it's going to be wonderful. I've already experienced it just in this last month. A lot of people hear that. What the heck is that? Well, they know that something's different in the energy field, all right? And the astrological part about it, it lines up with we as humanity changing and growing and learning. It also lines up with where we're going. So it's about the negative and the positive again. You can think that AI is going to be bad or AI is going to be good. It's about your thinking. And it is about new beginnings, that we don't have to go back to where we were before. And we are, we're pioneers at this. We're going into the field of higher dimension. What does it mean, higher dimension? That's the higher consciousness. And there's going to be some upheavals, yes, and more things are coming out, but it's also part of where we need to be for the future. We need to go through this. This whole year is evolving. It's not going to be as tumultuous as last year, in a different way, because people are starting to see the actual consciousness, the energy flowing in them and how it's affecting them. So going forward is about continuing on this galactic journey of expansion, of ascension, of the consciousness, our abilities, that we're more than this meat suit. The connection with the intuition, it's all about intuition. Go within, be that light, be that lighthouse, all right? Be the light warrior. What I always say is let your love light shine. So your love light, your soul, all right, is right there ready. And your love for who you are, love yourself first. And you will see changes happening in your life, and especially for those that are still in the pain. They're still not wanting to change. 2026 is going to be amazing. You're going to see more miracles. You're going to see more people jump on this bandwagon. That's what I keep saying, jump on this bandwagon. But it's not. It's like coming out of who they thought they were and stand in their true purpose. Who are you? Why are you here? Where'd you come from? So that's for the galactic. And also, there's UFOs, there's galactic family helpers that have been here since the beginning of time. And there's also, you know, not nice things that have happened and that's coming out. But it needs to be exposed. It needs to be completely squashed before it can be built up. And that's what we're doing. 26 is about new beginnings. It's a new life. It's a new energy of the whole earth is having. And you can choose. It's all about choice. We've never been taking that choice away. It's going to be amazing. Probably by 2030, 2031, you're going to look back at this time and say, oh my gosh, just like 2020, when we look at 2020, 2020 was the starting point of really revving this up, things coming out. What has been hidden? And we've known all along, that it was going to happen. As far as there's things that need to be put out there, especially with us being older, we've seen things change. I remember when Kennedy was shot. I remember all that, and also the experience with my father being a Army vet from World War II and all the post-traumatic stress that he had. And it also showed me the demons that he had inside, and to show that he was just as human as I was, and he was doing the best that he could. So it all plays out with the past, history, and where are we evolving to? We're evolving to a whole new higher consciousness and help. And we do this together. So good things are coming.
Well, I look at the numerology around 2026. If you add up the numbers, it's the number's 10.
One. And that goes down to 1, new beginnings.
Yeah, you got it.
And 2025 was 9, destruction, ending, done.
Mhm.
Yep.
So it seems to be all in alignment, Sheila.
Exactly. And so that's where the serendipity comes, synchronicity comes in. It had to happen this way. In the evolution, when I look back at my own evolution, my childhood is such a gift, so I can relate to others. And then how it has moved us through. And that's where, meeting people where they're at. And then also the future for our children, our grandchildren. And I know that many of us light workers are from the future. We're back here to help. They've shown that to me over and over again. And a lot of people say, well, why can't we remember? Why don't we bring the stuff there? It's because we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Just like we weren't ready for the cell phones, but Star Trek back in the 60s, we knew about it back then, it was there. And where did they get the information to make those movies? So you can go to deep dive into this,
For sure. That sounds like a message of hope and,
lots of hope.
a bright light for the future. So that is good to know. And I've always felt we were heading in that direction, but it takes time and there's going to be stops and starts. And, progress is never linear to begin with, but particularly when we're talking about global transformation, the points to get there aren't always going to be pretty, but they're going to be necessary for us to get to the end result.
There's a whole lot of wealth into understanding all this, but it's the right time and divine time. Some people's brains can't really hold it, It's like, I get that. And some people don't want to know. That's okay too.
Yeah. We all have free will to align with any message to the extent that we want to align with it. So I could talk to you, Sheila, for about another 2 hours, but I got a couple more questions for you before we end our time today. The first is, you've left our listeners with just a lot of good stuff, but if you could leave our listeners with one ultimate takeaway or teaching today, what would that be?
You are worthy. You came here on a mission to live a life filled with joy. Take all of your experiences and make them beautiful opportunities. And you do that by standing in your power that you are worthy. And you are so loved. You are so loved.
Beautiful. My last question for you. people want to find out more about you, find out about your services, subscribe to the Ascension Wisdom YouTube channel, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, on YouTube, of course, go on YouTube and look for my name, Sheila B. Tillich, Galactic Ascension Academy. Subscribe, share, that type of stuff. My website is SheilaTillich.com. You can go to my website, and it is in the process of being redone. Or you can actually have a discovery call with me right on my front page, 30 minutes free. We can talk about, what you need. And that's what the discovery call is. What do you need? How can I help you? Also, you can actually email me at Sheila@SheilaTillich.com. And I know you're going to be putting that in the notes. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All your contact information will go in the episode notes when our episode goes live on YouTube and my other podcast platforms. So with that, Sheila, thank you so much for just a wonderful conversation today. I truly enjoyed it, and hopefully we can do this again in the future.
It sounds good. I'm open to it. Anytime, Dave. All right.
Thank you. And with that is a wrap on another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, wishing you peace.